Good evening to all of you. Welcome to News Tonight on Rajya Sabha Television. My name is Aishwarya Kapoor. Mumbai escaped the worst of cyclone Nisarga even as it made landfall this afternoon near Alibag and weakened thereafter. Also, the COVID-19 cases in India saw another surge of more than 8,000 cases, and in total the country has now more than 2 lakh cases. All the details on those big stories and much more coming up ahead. The Union Cabinet on Wednesday approved amendments to the Essential Commodities Act 1955, removing APMC restrictions for farmers.
Briefing the media, Union Minister Prakash Javadekar said under the proposed amendments, essentials like grains, oil, pulses, potatoes, onions have been excluded from the Essential Commodities Act. He added farmers have been freed from the constraints of the Agricultural Produce Marketing Committee.
अनाज, तेल, तिलहन, दाल, प्याज, आलू ऐसी वस्तुएं इसेंशियल कमोडिटीज एक्ट से बाहर कर दिए गए। अब किसान को तय प्लान के अनुसार वो निर्यात कर सकता है, भंडारण कर सकता है। ये सब सहूलतें उसको मिलेगी और केवल जब बहुत ही विशेष आपदा होगी, कोई प्राकृतिक आपदा आई या अत्यधिक महंगाई हो गई या कोई युद्ध हो गया, इस तरह का कोई कारण है बड़ा, तो ही ये बंधन फिर लग सकते, नहीं तो लगाने की जरूरत नहीं है।
Addressing the media, Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh Tomar said around 9.5 lakh farmers have benefited from PM Modi's scheme, which is historic. He added the government stands by its aim to double farmers' income by 2022, adding India got independence in 1947, but farmers got it today. The minister said the government is looking to help the farm sector take benefit from one country, one market, while also allowing farm produce to be sold across markets in India. The government said that they will allow anyone with a PAN card to buy agricultural produce and assured to come up with a model agreement for contract farming. The Modi government has also accepted the Swaminathan report allowing 50% higher MSP than input cost for farmers. The cabinet also approved the establishment of the Pharmacopoeia Commission for Indian Medicine and Homeopathy as a subordinate office under the Ministry of Ayush. The cabinet also decided to rename the Kolkata Port Trust as the Kolkata Shama Prasad Mukherjee Port. Apart from this, the centre has approved the Farming Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Ordinance 2020. The ordinance will create an ecosystem where farmers and traders will enjoy the freedom of choice of sale and purchase of agri-produce. The Union Cabinet meet was chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
ऑर्डिनेंस के माध्यम से सरकार की एक कोशिश है कि किसान पर जो अपने उत्पादन को बेचने के लिए प्रतिबंध लगे थे, उन प्रतिबंधों से पूरी तरह मुक्त किया जा रहा है। मंडियां रहेंगी, राज्य का एपीएमसी एक्ट रहेगा, लेकिन एपीएमसी की परिधि के बाहर जो सारा क्षेत्र है, चाहे वो किसान का घर ही क्यों ना हो, उस घर में जाकर भी कोई कंपनी, संस्था, प्रोसेसिंग इंडस्ट्री, एफपीओ, कोऑपरेटिव सेक्टर के समूह, कोई भी जाकर उसको उत्पादन का उचित मूल्य देकर वहाँ से माल खरीदेगा। मंडी की परिधि के बाहर पूरा ट्रेड एरिया होगा जहाँ पर ट्रेड हो सकती है और इस खरीद और बिक्री पर किसी भी प्रकार का कोई टैक्स किसी सरकार का नहीं होगा।
And on to the other top story that we are tracking. Cyclonic storm Nisarga made landfall on Maharashtra coast near Alibag at around 1 p.m. on Wednesday, with the wind's speed reaching up to 120 kilometers per hour. Nisarga later weakened into a cyclonic storm.
Moving northeastwards, it lay centered at 4:30 p.m. about 70 kilometers east-northeast of Alibag and 80 kilometers east-southeast of Mumbai and 45 kilometers northwest of Pune. Besides Raigad, heavy rain lashed Sindhudurg, Ratnagiri, Palghar, Thane, Mumbai city and suburbs of Navi Mumbai, Sindhudurg and Satara districts.
तीन तरीके से खतरा है, एक हेवी रेनफॉल है, एक विंड है और एक स्टॉर्म सर्ज या टाइडल वेव है। इसलिए हम यही एडवाइस दे रहे हैं कि लो लाइंग एरिया में जो अनसेफ प्लेसेस में है वो सभी सेफ शेल्टर में रहना चाहिए और बाहर नहीं आना चाहिए जब तक साइक्लोन है। ये लैंडफॉल होने के बाद लगभग 6 घंटा तक इसका साइक्लोन इंटेंसिटी रहेगा, इसलिए मिडनाइट के बाद ये वीक हो जाएगा और नॉर्थ ईस्ट दिशा में जाकर ये डिप्रेशन में परिणत हो जाएगा।
Maharashtra, Gujarat, Daman and Diu and Dadra and Nagar Haveli are also on high alert. In Mumbai, strong winds uprooted several trees. Civic body BMC received 37 complaints of tree fall. There were no casualties or injuries reported. Section 144 was imposed in the city. Mumbai police said hundreds of people living near the sea in Kolaba in South Mumbai, Worli and Dadar in central Mumbai and Juhu and Versova in western Mumbai were shifted to safer places. Movement on the Bandra-Worli Sea Link was suspended. Several low-lying areas in Pune were flooded due to rains since Tuesday night. Sporadic incidents like trees falling and damaged houses and power disruptions were reported from places in Pune. No untoward incident was reported in the southern coast of Gujarat. More than 63,700 people living close to the coast in 8 affected districts were shifted to safer places as a precautionary measure. 13 teams of the NDRF and 6 teams of the State Disaster Response Force were deployed at different locations. 43 teams of NDRF have been deployed in the 2 states, 21 are deployed in Maharashtra. Over 1 lakh people were evacuated from coastal Maharashtra ahead of the cyclone. Nearly 150 patients of the COVID facility in Bandra Kurla complex in Mumbai were shifted to another location as a precaution. Indian Coast Guard Region West has also mobilized 8 disaster relief teams in Maharashtra.
महाराष्ट्र और गुजरात मिलाकर एनडीआरएफ की 43 टीमें डिप्लॉय हैं। 43 में 21 टीमें महाराष्ट्र में हैं और 16 टीमें गुजरात में हैं। ये सभी टीमें ग्राउंड पर अभी हैं और मिनट टू मिनट खबर दे रही हैं। लगभग 1 लाख लोग दोनों स्टेट्स और यूनियन टेरिटरी मिला के 1 लाख लोगों को इवैक्यूएट किया जा चुका है और जो भी एहतियात बरतना है वो बरता जा रहा है। इसलिए मुझे उम्मीद है कि हम लोग इस साइक्लोन को पार पाएंगे एंड वी शुड बी एबल टू सक्सेसफुली नेगोशिएट।
Flight operations were suspended at Mumbai's Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj International Airport till 6 p.m. The Central Railway rescheduled several special trains, including 5 special trains departing from Mumbai.
Another single-day surge of over 8,000 new cases took India's total COVID-19 tally to over 2 lakh on Wednesday. The recoveries also shot past 1 lakh. India's first COVID-19 case was detected in Kerala on 30th of January. And since then, while it took 110 days to cross 1 lakh cases on 18th of May, the next 1 lakh cases were detected in just 15 days. In the last 24 hours, the COVID-19 numbers increased by 8,909 new cases. 217 deaths were reported. The 2 lakh plus cases at present include 1,01,497 active ones and 5,815 deaths. The recovery rate rose to 48.31%, up from Tuesday's 48.07%. 1,302 people have so far been cured or discharged. Number of COVID-19 cases in Maharashtra are 72,300. 2,465 people have succumbed to the disease. Tamil Nadu has 24,586 COVID-19 cases and 197 deaths, while Delhi has reported 22,132 cases and 556 deaths. Gujarat accounts for 17,617 cases and 1,092 deaths. According to the government, fewer people are dying in India of COVID-19 compared to the rest of the world. India's current case fatality rate is at 2.8% against the global average of 6.13%. From 3.3% on 15th of April, the country's fatality rate has been steadily declining from 3.25% deaths on 3rd of May to 3.15% on 18th of May. People above 60 years, who make up 10% of the country's population, account for 50% of COVID-19 deaths in India. 38% belong to the 60 to 74-year age group. Patients aged above 75 years account for 12% deaths. While 4.9 deaths per 1 lakh population are reported globally, India has recorded 0.4 deaths per 1 lakh. That is among the lowest in the world. In comparison, Belgium has close to 83 deaths per 1 lakh population, Spain 62 deaths, the UK close to 58 deaths, and the US 31 fatalities per 1 lakh population. At the lower end of the spectrum, Mexico has 7.7 deaths per 1 lakh population. According to ICMR, India is in a better position than other countries and is conducting a serological survey to understand the spread of the disease. The ICMR has so far tested over 41 lakh samples. 1.37 lakh samples were tested in the last 24 hours. And now an update on the government's largest repatriation mission, and over 57,000 citizens have returned to India so far under the government's Vande Bharat mission. Disclosing this on Twitter, Civil Aviation Minister Hardeep Singh Puri said that on Tuesday, Air India brought 2,865 Indians from many countries, including Abu Dhabi, Doha, Dubai, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jeddah. Meanwhile, 14 flights are bringing more than 2,200 Indian nationals from Gulf countries on Wednesday. 10 of them are returning from United Arab Emirates. As many as 127 stranded passengers from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, reached Gaya in Bihar on Wednesday morning. 124 were from Bihar, while 3 are from Jharkhand. Air India's 7th evacuation flight from Moscow landed with 150 Indians in Bihar's Gaya at 1:30 p.m. Similarly, a flight from Muscat brought 149 passengers to Bhubaneswar at 7:45 p.m. Air India will operate 5 flights in the third phase of the mission to evacuate almost 1,200 Indians stranded in the UK between 18th to 23rd of June.
I would like to thank the Consulate General of India. I also like to thank the Government of India and the Government of Tamil Nadu for helping me in this situation. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
In another development, the railways operated 4,155 Shramik special trains, ferrying more than 57 lakh migrant workers since 1st of May. The top 5 states from where maximum trains originated are Gujarat, Maharashtra, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. The railway said Shramik trains were also terminated in various states across the country. The states that received maximum trains are Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha and West Bengal. Railways are also running 15 pairs of special Rajdhani type trains connecting New Delhi. 200 more timetabled trains were started from the 1st of June. Railways say the state governments cancelled 256 Shramik special trains since 1st of May. They included Maharashtra, Gujarat, Karnataka and Uttar Pradesh. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a telephonic conversation with US President Donald Trump on Tuesday. According to the White House, Trump said that US would ship the first tranche of 100 ventilators to India next week. Trump also spoke about the US presidency of G7 and conveyed his desire to expand its ambit to include other countries, including India. He also invited Prime Minister Modi to the next G7 summit in USA. Commending the US President, Prime Minister Modi replied, India will be happy to work with the US and other countries to ensure the success of the summit. Prime Minister Modi also expressed concern regarding the ongoing civil disturbances in the US. The two leaders also exchanged views on the COVID-19 situation in their individual countries, the situation on the India-China border in Ladakh, and the need for reforms in the World Health Organization. In a Twitter message after the conversation, Prime Minister Modi said the richness and depth of India-US consultations will remain an important pillar of the post-COVID global architecture. He termed the conversation warm and productive. And now an update on the global situation of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the European nations are taking steps to gradually reopen their borders to foreign travelers and revive their tourism industry. On Wednesday, Italy began reopening its internal boundaries as well as borders with other European countries. Tourists from Europe have been allowed to enter Italy once again without quarantine restrictions. However, social distancing rules are in place at the airport with the temperature scans in operation on arrival. Italy has been relaxing its lockdown since the beginning of May, with restrictions on movement and business activities easing gradually. Germany will lift a travel ban for European Union member states along with Britain, Iceland, Norway, Liechtenstein and Switzerland from the 15th of June. On Wednesday, Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez asked Parliament to vote for the last extension of the state of emergency over the coronavirus pandemic. This is the sixth extension of the state of emergency, which would last until 21st of June. Meanwhile, restrictions are being gradually eased across Spain, allowing resumption of social and economic activities. Spain is considering reopening its borders for some countries from 22nd of June, preponing it from 1st of July. In France, restaurants, bars and cafes have reopened their doors to customers. Museums, parks and schools have all been allowed to reopen. In regions designated safe, swimming pools, gyms, amusement parks and theatres also reopened on Tuesday, while European tourists will be allowed to return from 15th of June. Greece too is reopening to tourists from the 15th of June. Businesses of non-essential industries were allowed to reopen starting Tuesday in the Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro. Furniture and decoration shops, car retail dealers and delivery services are allowed to reopen during the first phase. The city has planned out resuming entire businesses in 6 phases. On Wednesday, schools reopened in North Korea after delays over the novel coronavirus concern, even as North Korea has not reported any coronavirus cases so far. Meanwhile, Australia is heading towards recession for the first time in nearly 3 decades after the economy shrank 0.3% in the first quarter due to the coronavirus pandemic that shut down businesses and left many jobless. Worldwide, the COVID-19 pandemic has claimed over 383,000 lives. The virus has infected over 6.4 million people so far. Moving on in the bulletin now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will hold India's first ever virtual bilateral summit with his Australian counterpart Scott Morrison on Thursday. Both nations will sign a landmark agreement for reciprocal access to military bases for logistics support. Here are all the details.
The summit between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison will take place at 11 a.m. on Thursday. The focus will be to intensify the positives in the bilateral relationship. Both sides will also sign several agreements, including one on sharing of military logistics facilities. The first ever bilateral summit through video conferencing by an Indian Prime Minister is also expected to build on growing defence ties and a shared approach to make the Indo-Pacific region free, open and inclusive.
Some more agreements will be signed between the two countries with a view to strengthen the manufacturing capacity of India. Those may include enhanced cooperation in science and technology, cooperation in pharmaceutical sector, especially equipment making in pharmaceutical sector. Other than that, there might be agreements in the rare earths, rare minerals, and the whole idea is to decrease the dependency over China in a strategic manufacturing at least.
Bilateral trade, that is currently around $21 billion, will also top the agenda, with an aim to increase it 10 times. With the virtual summit, the relationship that was upgraded to a strategic partnership in 2009 will now be elevated to comprehensive strategic partnership status. The virtual summit is also an opportunity for the two leaders to review progress of the bilateral relationship.
The existing strategic partnership between the two countries is going to be upgraded to comprehensive strategic partnership. Australia considers India as front-runner friend, and it also considers India as an eminent power in maritime domain. Both are going to be part of G7 in its upgraded format. Australia and India are Quad members. They are doing very well in Quad, and they are also in 2+2 format at secretary level. This 2+2 format may be upgraded in ministerial level in coming days.
In the run-up to the summit, Foreign Secretary Harsh Shringla met Australian High Commissioner to India Barry O'Farrell on Wednesday and reviewed the progress of the partnership in political, economic and defence fields. With inputs from Akhilesh Suman, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
In some international news, the US cities on Tuesday witnessed protests for the 8th night in a row over the death of a black man in police custody.
In Portland City, police used stun grenades and tear gas on the crowd, calling it an unlawful assembly. In Los Angeles, the National Guard patrolled the streets. Scores of demonstrators who stayed out after curfew were arrested. New York City witnessed clashes between protesters and police, as well as looting of some stores. While the protests for George Floyd and other victims of police brutality have been largely peaceful during the day, at night the crowds have resorted to rioting, vandalism, arson and looting. Curfews are in force in dozens of cities across the US, while major cities including Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, Houston, Philadelphia and Washington DC have reported violence. Floyd, an African-American man, died in police custody in Minneapolis after an officer who was later fired and charged with murder and manslaughter pressed his knee into Floyd's neck for nearly 8 minutes. 3 other officers involved were fired but not yet charged. This sparked outrage and protests across the country. US President Donald Trump has threatened to use the military to stop the violent protests. Calling for national reconciliation in the United States, Pope Francis on Wednesday said that while racism is intolerable, the violence that has started in protest is self-destructive and self-defeating. He also condemned Floyd's death and said he was praying for him and those who were killed due to racism.
A United Nations report on terrorism has once again bagged India's position that Pakistan still remains the epicenter of international terrorism.
Released on Tuesday, the United Nations Security Council report reveals that Pakistani terror organizations like the Lashkar-e-Toiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed send trainers to Afghanistan to carry out assassinations. The report, compiled by the Analytical Support and Sanctions Monitoring Team of the UNSC, says there are over 6,500 Pakistanis and other foreign terrorists in Afghanistan. They are facilitated by the JEM and the LET, who act as advisors, trainers and specialists in improved explosive devices. Both groups carry out targeted assassinations of government officials and others. Reacting to the report, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Anurag Srivastava said the report vindicates its stand that Pakistan is still a safe haven for proscribed terrorist entities and individuals. Srivastava said, and I quote, "We note with serious concern reference in the report to the continued presence of the senior leadership of the UN-designated terrorist organization Al-Qaeda and its affiliates in Afghanistan, as foreign terrorists, including up to 6,500 Pakistanis operating in Afghanistan. Srivastava adds that Pakistan has failed to fulfill its international obligations, including those under UNSC resolutions and the Financial Action Task Force, to end support to terrorism. He asserted that the international community should hold Pakistan accountable and seek sustained, verifiable and irreversible action by Pakistan against terrorism.
In some other news, elections for the 5 non-permanent members of the United Nations Security Council will be held on the 17th of June.
India is a candidate for non-permanent seat from the Asia-Pacific category for the 2021-22 term. Being the sole contender from the grouping, India is assured of a win in the June 17 elections, which will be held under new voting arrangements due to the coronavirus pandemic. In normal circumstances, the UNSC elections are held in the General Assembly Hall, with each of the 193 member countries casting their vote in a secret ballot. Besides India, Canada, Ireland and Norway are vying for 2 seats in the Western Europe and other countries category, while Mexico is the only candidate for the lone Latin America and Caribbean seat. Kenya and Djibouti will contest the seat from the African group. India's candidature had been unanimously endorsed in June last year by the 55-member Asia-Pacific grouping. Previously, India has been elected as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council for the years 1950-51, 1967-68, 1972-73, 1977-1978, 1984-1985, 1991-92 and 2011-2012. Experts say the 2021-22 term will be critical for India, which has been pushing efforts to reform the Security Council and seek a permanent membership of the body. In recent years, support for India has also increased, with many countries advocating that the current UNSC does not represent the geopolitical realities of the 21st century.
And the World Bicycle Day is celebrated on 3rd of June across the world, with events promoting and using bicycle rides at the national and international level. This year, the celebrations were subdued due to the coronavirus pandemic. Here are the details.
The UN Environment Programme put out a video on Twitter to share the health benefits of cycling and recognized bicycles as a key component of the post-COVID-19 green recovery. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu also promoted the use of bicycle, calling it a simple, affordable and environment-friendly means of transportation. He encouraged people and authorities to develop a culture of cycling.
And with that, we wrap up this edition of News Tonight. We'll see you tomorrow at the same time with all the day's big stories. Till then, take care, stay home, stay safe, stay healthy. Good night.